I mean, like, only one you do have to worry. Only one person's opinion matters, though.
Right.
So it's just the whole, everything has become so much simpler.
Right.
And yet more complicated, but also simpler.
Mm-hmm.
So
after seeing Barbie, I told my wife I should bleach my hair so I can
Really?
look just like Ken, expecting some sort of protest or reaction. But she was like, if that's what you want. And I was like, that is not what you were supposed to say. So next week, who knows how I will look.
There you go.
I'm just
and
kidding.
He's admitted on camera.
I'm not
He's
gonna do
admitted
that.
on camera the ultimate sin, not the bleaching of the hair, but the fact that he's seen Barbie in theaters and contributed to the downfall of society. I'm kidding.
Yeah.
That has been the hot topic this week, though, is watching the wide array of people who absolutely hated it and people who hated it so much that they liked it. Rather saw it was so horrible that it actually undid itself. It's been a very interesting conversation. I personally have enjoyed watching the conversation without having to watch the film, which I think I would have stabbed my eyes out with a spork before I would do that. But
I outright loved it. But if I could watch it again without all the feminist propaganda, all the monologues, and just like the Ken scenes, just hilarious. Absolutely hilarious.
Well, there we go, folks. You've heard it here. We're going to stop, though, because this isn't a movie review station, although
we've done Sound of Freedom and now
Barbie
as well.
I was going to say Sound of Freedom, Barbie. You never know what's next. We should just Mission Impossible. We'll go down. We'll hit all the different genres, drama, action, comedy, but no, we won't. We will get going, though, now that I see some of you have joined. Apologize for being a couple minutes late there. Our camera decided that it just was going to take a day off, so we started talking about camera things and movies, and we wound up on Barbie. And then you wound up here. So let's get even more unauthorized. Welcome. It's Thursday. It's noon. It is Unauthorized Caucus Day and time, and we've got a good one today. Let me remind you first, though, before we go any farther, where you are right now. Hit the like button. Throw us a comment. Let us know that you're over there in the chat or down in the comment section and say hello. Pipe into this conversation and type back and forth with us. Trust me, that actually not only helps us in the discussion, but it helps the algorithms. That's what's going to get this into the eyes and then onto the screens of more people. So get in there and like, share, subscribe, hit the big red button, big green on Rumble, big red on YouTube. Share this with a friend. Let them know what you're doing. But most importantly, what website do they need to go to?
The Philly Schlafly Eagles website. Sign up for our email.
Here, I thought you were going to say go buy tickets for Barbie. Go to philschlafly.com. Like he said, sign up for the Wink email. It'll pop down a little banner on the top of whatever website page you land on. Sign up, give us your name and email. We promise not to abuse it, but you will get great notifications and a very good, brief morning email summary every day. So go sign up for that. We won't lose touch. But you are probably here because we had a very interesting title, 14th Amendment Fraud. Did I tell you the title?
No, you didn't.
I didn't even tell you.
That's a bit shocking for me.
Yeah, there you go. 14th Amendment Fraud. Well, there you go. But this is a conversation that's come back up in the news. And I brought props today. We have props. But this has come back around. You and I started to have this conversation. Hi, Joanne. Thank you for being on Facebook. You're not Joanne, obviously. And you can't be if you wanted to. I don't believe in that.
We don't believe in that here.
We don't. We started having this conversation earlier this week, though. Tuesday. This is what sparked it off. Tuesday, Congressman Matt Gaetz, Florida District 1, the Florida man congressman himself, Congressman Matt Gaetz, filed a new bill, the End Birthright Citizenship Fraud Act of 2023. And it has kicked off this whole discussion for us all over again. Of birthright citizenship, anchor babies, birth tourism industry, coming back to a discussion about the 14th Amendment. And man, when you just Google this phrase, going through all of the lamestream media sites and news out there, it is bonkers, the stuff that is said and not backed up. When we can go back to primary sources, because not only did the Constitutional Amendment only get passed post-Civil War, was it 1868? I think this was ratified.
Somewhere around there.
There were major court cases in the 1880s, the 1890s from the Supreme Court that you can go back and read and look up and see the entire thing. And yet all of this ridiculous stuff is being said. So this is a whole conversation that we started to kind of have and we wanted to bring up here and kind of dispel some myths. So Bert, why don't you give us your rundown? What is birthright citizenship? Where does it come from? What do people mean by it? And then we can kind of go from there into what it actually has turned into, whether it's real or not, whether it should be. What is birthright citizenship? What do we mean by that?
Right. Well, it's the idea that, the legal idea that if somebody is born within this country, that they are automatically a citizen of the United States of America, which makes sense on a pretty basic level of like, okay, you're born in a country, but when it's a country like America that everybody wants to come to, that has led to some issues, because if somebody gets over here illegally, has a baby, their child is a U.S. citizen per this interpretation of the amendment and the laws on the books, which is to the detriment of all of American society, I think.
Yeah. And by the way, don't forget, everyone always tells you, speak up. Speak up.
Yes.
I think what they're saying is, I'm too loud, but I'm not going to get quieter, so you're going to have to get louder.
Okay.
So this is going to work. Yeah. No, I'm kidding. Well, let's go back and let's read it. Primary sources. Let this be the plug for primary sources. We've been this week lamenting over the predicament that we've put our wives in by them marrying such book hoarders and nerds. But you kind of flesh that out and realize primary sources are incredibly important. We have the opportunity in America to go back and get those things. Carrie, do you have a pocket constitution? Do you carry one around?
Not on me. No.
Not on you at this moment, but in general.
I do. I have one.
Yeah, in general.
I have a few, I'm sure.
I just gonna say, I do too. I have a shelf full of them as they wear out or get new ones. You should too. You know why? Because we said, well, what is Birthright? Oh, the 14th Amendment. Let me go read that. That's what we're going to do right now. And that's what it comes from. 14th Amendment, Section 1. Yeah, ratified 1868. If I had a mini candy bar, I'd throw myself one. All persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and of the state wherein they reside. And then, of course, it goes on in other things. But there are two key components there. And I feel like the left entirely focuses on the first one, and the right entirely focuses on the second one. And you and I, as conservatives, and Mason, you and I need to understand the whole picture of where this comes from. And this we get really zoned in on this. And I think that one of the key things to recognize, this is, I would say, pretty debated amongst conservatives. Actually, Hillsdale came up. You're a Hillsdale grad. Mm-hmm. I've seen several papers, coming out of researchers at Hillsdale and professors there, and they fall on both sides of this. People, conservative worldview, are still coming down. Some of them saying, no, this really is how the amendment reads, and others saying, no, it's really not, because of these two different things. Did you find much discussion around this in any of the places you went around with Hillsdale, or not?
No, not particularly. People are often more concerned with the ways that this plays into the entire immigration conversation as a whole, the way that it impacts citizenship.
Yeah.
But I can see how legal scholars, people interested in constitutional law, would take issue with certain parts of this amendment. But to answer your question, no.
Okay. Well, and that's fine. I wondered, because I noticed it come up a lot. But what it boils down to is the question, being born on U.S. soil, is that the only condition for U.S. citizenship or not, if you're just born here? And there's actually a couple of major Supreme Court cases, and this is what I wanted to bring down, two things, because sometimes in certain news headlines, or not news headlines, in certain articles, you'll actually see it quoted correctly. You will see them mention, which case is it? There's 1898, United States v. Wong Kim Ark. And this is actually a child born of legal permanent residents in the United States who were from China. But it's something that had to do, he was over 21, came back, and essentially he was denied entry at a certain point. This made it all the way up to the Supreme Court. And this is the case that you'll often hear a lot of people on, the birthright citizenship, which is, that's what it means. You have a birthright, being born here on U.S. soil, to U.S. citizenship, which doesn't necessarily make sense when you consider the second component, and subject to the jurisdiction thereof. People who place themselves as a subject to the jurisdiction of the U.S. This is a pretty clear decision, this 1898 U.S. v. Wong Kim Ark, that we're talking about someone who is not a child of parents who are in the country illegally. These were legal permanent residents, even though they were subject to the Emperor of China at the time. They were legal permanent residents of the U.S. who had a child here. That's a different story. And I think there's a second case, and I grabbed an article and I pulled this out. This is what I want to tell everyone to go look at. I'm sorry, you need to come in here with color commentary, because I'm the one who came at the court cases today. There's another one that everyone should look at, and this is what I wanted to arm you with. You're going to, if you start digging into birthright citizenship, see U.S. v. Wong Kim Ark, an 1898 date, but in 1884, there was another Supreme Court case that's much more applicable to this whole situation, which, to your point, this has become an issue of illegal immigration now.
Right.
That's what it's tied to. It's a magnet. And we talk about securing the border. Well, we could put up a wall, but what if we take away the incentives of people coming here? If you can get across the border and your child is born here, even though you've never been here before, you have no connection, no family, no nothing, all of a sudden your child's a citizen with an anchor baby. All of a sudden you have an anchor here and the whole family has a way in.
Right. It's certainly a loophole that needs to close because people are just coming through. And I mean, in general, I think that the way that this amendment is interpreted and the way it's applied in the laws, which is why I'm thankful for the conversation that Matt Gaetz is starting, is I think needs to be very seriously looked at, because even the incentive to come to America is not just to be able to stay here, it's to get all the benefits of living in America. We have a fantastic economy, or at least we have throughout most of our history. We have a system that really lets people live good lives, at least throughout most of our history. Last few years have been a little more dicey. But it's kind of, there's this assumption that the left has a lot that this is for everyone, whereas it's really not, and nor can it be.
Yeah.
Because if we ship entire other continents into our country, it's no longer going to be the best at providing a good and happy life, prosperous family life, and things like that. Which is why I think that even in cases of people under LPR status, legal permanent residence, there. When they have a kid, you know, there's still the family in question in that original court case is still a Chinese family, you know, and the child is still a Chinese child. He's so we just grant American. He you know, his ancestors are from China. His ancestors are not Americans that are descended from people who immigrated from Europe during the colonial period or like after that, immigrating towards the communities of similar people to them. It's alien in really the truest sense, like a legal sense, but also it's a fundamentally different culture and way of life that they're coming from, especially if you look at the stark differences between China and America throughout all of history, including right now. So it really makes you wonder, who is America for? Who should it be for? And I mean, I think it should be for the people who have been here since we established this country for what it is, which is essentially white people and black people, you know, the people who we regrettably brought over as slaves, but, you know, who have contributed to the building of this country, as well as the people who came and built the North from Europe. That is who's constructed this country. And immigration is good. Immigration is nice. It has some benefits, but it shouldn't just be open the floodgates for absolutely anybody, legally or illegally, that wants to have the benefits of the welfare state and just have a kid and
and that's the interesting thing you touch on. One of the interesting things, which frankly, like I'm gonna take it. Well, I hate to say to a deeper level. I'm going to disagree with you to an extent. Who America was founded for, I think, is a key of why America was founded. Typically, we find throughout all of human history these aggregations, these grouping ups by people groups being formed out of common language, common culture, common this, common that. America, for the very first time in history, was founded upon common ideas, upon principles. It had nothing to do with where you came from. It had nothing to do with what color you were, where you were born, your religious heritage, all of these different things. It was what we're after, the principles that we're after, which is why you found pilgrims and separatists and adventurers and explorers all coming together in this, this one place. And later on, even though, again, the travesties of slavery, still introducing new people here who stayed, even when the option was given, I want to be here because the principles that we're working toward, albeit, through major strife sometimes, as we found with fighting a war over many issues in our own nation. It is an idea that I agree with and want to strive toward. So I'm a part of this community. This assimilation. When it comes to, it's not, this is why Phyllis Schlafly talked so much about this. In fact, if you just go and look at the phyllisschlafly.com website, type in the word assimilation, you'll find an incredible amount of work there that she did on it. But it's really assimilating to the ideas. Don't get rid of your culture. Bring your food, bring your cultural heritage, bring your, the things that make your culture unique, language and everything else. Now, we do have a common language, English, but we have a common set of ideas and a common set of standards And of course, these things are based off of the Judeo-Christian ethic. It doesn't demand what church you do or don't go to, but it does demand we respect property rights and the right to life and this and that and the other. So it really is a unique proposition, this America, like this assimilating into its ideas. And that's really the culture. So when you just open the door to anyone and you don't allow this process of assimilation, to your point, it destroys the whole point, the whole purpose of the country, which is an idea, not just a group of people who are all the same, which is not what we were founded on. Oh, and that's what I was going to say. That's what I was going to point to. Everyone talks about this 1898 Supreme Court decision. There's an 1884 one, Elk v. Watkins, which actually had to do with an American Indian who was still, because at this point, and this is kind of the biggest whenever someone says, oh, birthright citizenship has always been supported by court law. No, it hasn't. Or American Indians, Native Americans would have been U.S. citizens 50-something years before they were, because you were recognized as your allegiance, you were a subject. That's the word I was looking for. You were subject to your sovereign tribe first. So even this one guy who had just worked himself all the way up to the 1884 Supreme Court, he lived outside the reservation, but he was still technically considered a subject of the tribe first before anything else. So if you want to become a U.S. citizen, we can do that. But just because you moved off the tribe lands and live over here doesn't just automatically make you one. And that really is much more applicable to these people who come across the border and have a kid. Well, that's fine. There's a system for that, but it just doesn't automatically make you a citizen because you happened to get here and not there. That's not how that works. And I'm always kind of surprised when I hear conservatives make the argument for this, because there's just, to me, and I'm gonna end here because I know I haven't even paid attention to the clock. Oh no, we're doing fine on time. Oh, we can keep going. Sorry, I came loaded for bear with this one. I don't mean to talk over you. We'll do a lightning round of something else. But to me, this is back to the idea of the principles that we were founded on. This is a respect for the rule of law. When you look at the 14th Amendment, all persons born or naturalized and subject to the jurisdictions thereof, this is really a respect for the rule of law. You are obligated to follow our laws. You've subjected yourself to the rule of law here in America. This is an important point, not to just be gotten rid of because technically where you were born. And I think that's a pretty easy argument, especially when you go back down and talk about original sources. Go to the intent. It's not too hard to read the intentions of the folks who put together the 14th Amendment, because they were specifically trying to address the issue of slavery, making sure that we incorporated all of the freed slaves in a final way, which is one of the reasons why this is an amendment to begin with, instead of just law, because then it couldn't be undone later on simply by law. This is an amendment now. We have tried to solidify. So you look at the purpose of what they were trying to do and overcome at that point. It becomes a very different conversation than the one that just gets tossed around today by the news. There's so much, and it's not that long ago. It's very easy to find the primary sources for it and look back and say, well, I understand where this came from. That's not what that means. So illegal immigrants can't just put a toe over onto the American side of the line, have a baby, and the baby is a citizen, and now all of a sudden all the thing. No, that's not how that works. It's incredible that.
And I think it's important to notice how it's taken on a very new political dimension. I don't think the conversation today is as much about what is right or wrong, in a very moral sense, about what makes a citizen, or even like a legal conversation of like, okay, what does the Constitution mean by this? How should the Constitution be properly interpreted? Rather, it's a very political issue, which is why you see it as a left versus right issue. And because the left will make these moral claims, it's about helping people, giving people a better life. These are the same people, mind you, who kill babies and who have an outcry about a movie trying to stop child trafficking. These people are not particularly concerned with morals, it seems. It's usually for other ends, and those ends seem to be for election results. I mean, you look at the data, migrants overwhelmingly vote blue, and as they allow more migrants to come into these southern red states like Texas and my home state, it's slowly turning the state purple, and it's going to turn it blue probably within the next decade. This is the real intention behind shipping more migrants in, because it's going to turn America into a great place for Democrats to get elected. A place where only Democrats will be able to get elected. So that's what's really going on with the left, is they're not actually concerned about these people. They always have ulterior motives. Like I see these posts of migrants like in a river or like a boat falling apart, like struggling, and it's like, oh, you conservatives, you care so much about babies in the womb, but you're totally heartless about these people. Like it's somehow our responsibility that the left has like opened the borders through these dangerous passageways, and all these migrants are going through these dangerous passageways and getting hurt and getting harmed because of the avenues that the left opened. Like, how is this conservatives' fault? Like I don't think these new passageways should be open, nor do I think that it's the government's responsibility to make these passageways for illegal immigration easier or better.
Right.
It's the Biden administration's fault that the cartel is the best way to illegally get through to America. That is not the responsibility of the conservatives whatsoever.
And make no mistake, when we talk about this being a political, like being turned into a political issue, this is a huge number of people we're talking about, a huge number of the births in America. And I was trying to look for more recent numbers than this. I knew about these. The research showed that in 2014, so we're approaching about a decade old on this now. This is from the Center for Immigration Studies. 1 in 5 births in the United States was to an immigrant mother, legal or illegal. 1 in 10 births, half of that, right?
You're right.
So yeah, half of that 1 in 10 births were to illegal immigrant mothers. So this is 10%, 20% of the births in America are immigrants. 10% of the births in America are illegal immigrants. This is a massive number of the self-replication rate here in America of the national birth rate is to illegal immigrants, which is a huge conversation. I mean, this is, to your point, this is built-in voters. If you can hook these folks and get them to like you the most, or get the policies that just make it a free ride. I mean, this is securing a future voting base for generations, quite possibly. These are massive numbers. So it's not just like this never happens. This is statistically a huge percentage, 1/10 of every baby born in America at least 10 years ago. And this is only expanded based on what we've seen flood our borders since then. I have to imagine it's much higher than that now.
Right.
But I'm looking, and I'll try to find, if you've noticed, by the way, let me take a quick pause before we wrap up the conversation. I'll remind you, if you're not on the email list, you're not getting the links anymore, because I'm sending out those links after the fact to everyone on the email list, because it's easier that way, for me at least. You can get them, and then you have them, you can go click on them, and I'll link to this and share them, and it's got a link to the video as well. But this is, I'll look and see if I can find a more recent number, but this is a huge number of births in America. It's gigantic.
And something that comes to mind when we talk about these them continuing their families in our country is kind of the change in the meaning of assimilation. Because you think about if a very traditional Islamic family or a very traditional Hispanic Catholic family comes over to the U.S., usually they're going to side with us on some things, especially LGBT issues of marriage, like even Muslims who have a very different culture than us. But in many instances that I've seen firsthand, just over the course of a second and third generation, the kids become extremely enmeshed in the TikTok culture and the social media, and the assimilation is occurring, but not to our traditional American values of freedom and liberty and property. The assimilation is occurring with this new woke culture that is infecting the minds of children of migrants whose parents might even be raising them well, and who may even sincerely want them to come over here for a better life and to start a business and to be successful Americans, live the American dream. But instead their kids are just getting enveloped into the woke mob, and they are assimilating. It's just not in the way that we would want migrants to assimilate.
Yeah, it's true. And I'm seeing, by the way, over here, someone on Rumble, Phyllis, is talking about how this is a big issue in Congress, because a lot of members of Congress will tell you, she says, they'll tell you to your face that they don't support automatic birthright citizenship, but then they will go and vote a different direction.
Right.
Which I think, honestly, and if we can wrap up here on a action item, I guess the action item from this is, to Phyllis's point over here on Rumble, this is an issue that, I mean, we're talking about a constitutional amendment, but there are two main things: how the law is written. Well, three main things, obviously, three branches of government: how the law is written, how the law is interpreted, how the law is enforced. Our law enforcement branch is just not enforcing the law. In fact, they're creating new laws that aren't actually laws, but they're enforcing rules as if they were a law. We don't have to go down that. We'll go down my hatred for some of the alphabet agencies later. That's separate. Congress really does need to step up and make some serious clarifications to the law, as long as it doesn't go against the Constitution, and let that play out. And we've got, I would say, probably two different things. There are people who are bought and paid for. They'll tell you what they actually think maybe in private, but then they go and vote a different way because someone has made contributions or they've made promises or fill in the blank. Or frankly, this is probably due to a lot of omnibus stuff. This is I know this is one of the things Rand Paul and a lot of others just rail against, is why we stack on this and that and the other all together so that finally you could twist it to show that someone's kind of voted for this thing. Oh, they voted for this thing. Yeah, but there were like 900 items in this bill, and 899 of them were good and the one was bad. Someone thought the 899 outweighed the one, but now we can forever trash this person for voting against this one thing.
Right.
We ought not to pass legislation this way. Like one issue, up or down vote, period. Just move through it. And that the way that Congress is passing legislation, and also the way that Congress operates in the background, what's the old joke that they should have NASCAR jackets so we know who's their sponsor?
Who their donors are.
This is a reason for them to know, hey, you might have big donors, but the people who actually, check the box and put you into office are more powerful. And there's 10,000 of us emailing you every single day asking, why aren't you consistent on this issue? Why aren't you looking at the 14th Amendment? Why are you following talking points, not the Constitution? Why aren't you looking at primary sources? Here they are. I've given them to you. It's easy. This is the action item, is for us to really lean on our two senators and member of Congress each and try to get some clarity, because this needs to be, pounding the sand. Like Matt Gaetz is pounding the pavement on this, talking about this issue. We need everyone to do that, because we really need a branch to step up in the midst of all of this. And, it's not the judicial's job. Their job is to interpret, not to create law. And if the executive's not going to enforce it, then the people who make it have to raise heck and say, this isn't being done the right way. So go call your congressman. And it works. We say that. It really does work.
Right.
Having been on the other side of that, working for campaigns and different things, when you have a significant amount of people calling or emailing, man, it makes an impact. It really does. And it doesn't matter how much money's in their campaign coffers. If their entire district is against them, Madison Cawthorn, you're gone. It doesn't even matter how much money is there. If the will of the voters is a different direction, you're out. So that's the lesson.
They need to know the will of the voters. If we aren't calling and emailing and writing letters, how are they supposed to know that their constituents feel a certain way?
Right. You got to get other people to do it too. Because it's not just, when they say, well, it's just me, it's just the one voice. Well, no, it's not. You should go and get everyone else that to agree with you and do the same thing. And then that turns into 10, 25, 50, 100, 500, 1,000 people. All of the sudden, you have politicians shaking in their boots because they've heard from so many thousands of people. They know that everyone means business. And then you got to stay on it. Really, that's where we are. The more that we ignore it and just let it go, or feel like we're alone, the worse it gets. We just get into this spiral, this downward spiral. But that's that. That's what I got. The 14th Amendment, which it is being used aggressively as a birthright citizenship fraud that's being foisted upon the American people. It is handing out the incredible privilege and honor of U.S. citizenship and cheapening it. It's inflation. It's citizenship inflation is what it is.
Right.
And it is definitely an issue that I think all of us need to understand. Go back to primary sources. If you don't have a pocket constitution, email me. I'll send you one. Really, email us, info@phyllisschlafly.com. I'll send you a pocket constitution. Go and sign up at the website. I will send you all of the resources, court cases, and a couple of different articles, a few things we talked about today. Go to phyllisschlafly.com, type in assimilation, go to the Heritage Foundation, heritage.org, and type in Birthright, and you'll find tons of really good articles because they're on the right side of this issue. Their folks understand how this is being grossly misapplied, and a fraud is being pushed upon the American people, and the propaganda wing in the news keeps repeating it. So Matt Gaetz is right. Matt Gaetz is right. And we need to follow his lead. Congress needs to follow his lead, and you and I need to understand and talk about these things. So there you go.
Yep.
Thanks
is our
for
joining us.
Caucus today.
Yeah.
So join us next week, next Thursday at noon. We will be back. We'll have another good topic. I hope that this one was informative and helpful, and a fun one for you as much as it was for us.
Yep. Subscribe.
And, subscribe.
Like, hit the notification bell, turn that on, turn on push notifications so you know exactly when we're starting.
You will see Mason and Ryan's face just pop up onto your phone every Thursday. We're ready to rock and roll and hope you will be too. All right. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. We'll see you next